How does a boy from Houston, Texas,
and a girl from Puerto Rico,
who became religious in Shanghai,
who became religious in Puerto Rico, in Miami,
studied in Jerusalem,
studied in New York City,
and met and got married here on the steps of 770?
Our rabbis called it the quintessential Chabad match.
Hi, I'm Matt Trush. And believe it or not, once upon a time, I was a Chinese movie star. I was getting a master's at Harvard in Chinese studies, and I was doing some research in Shanghai, when all of a sudden I get this small part as an extra in a kung fu movie. You know, the white guy who gets beat up? And that just snowballed. It went from one part to another part, bigger and bigger roles, until I was on sitcoms and soap operas, and finally got a leading role in a movie. When I first got to Shanghai, Rabbi Greenberg shows up, and I was already on my way to be a Chinese movie star. What do you think? That's me. I ended up becoming the most famous Western actor in China. Rabbi Greenberg, on the other hand, couldn't speak Chinese, so I became his unofficial translator / sidekick. I thought I was helping him, but really he was helping me. As we drove around Shanghai, I got to ask all those questions that my conservative background left unanswered. Until one day, the rabbi gets real serious and asks me a blunt question. Matt, have you ever considered not marrying a Chinese girl? Why not, Rabbi? Well, let me just say, I think your parents would probably want you to marry a nice Jewish girl.
Hi, I'm Yael Trush, a nice Jewish girl. But the last thing I was looking for was a gringo. I'm from Puerto Rico, remember? So no gringo, let alone a guy who played one on Chinese TV. After I graduated Tufts University, I moved to New York City to work on Wall Street. The grueling investment banking life forced me to ask hard questions. Is there more to life than professional and financial success? What about marriage and family? In search of a better work-life balance, I moved to Miami. That's where I met my first Chabad shluchim, Rabbi Rafi and Hindi Rosenberg. I immediately discovered a beauty and depth to Judaism and to life that I never knew existed. I started attending every class they would give to young professionals and every Shabbat and Yom Tov dinner too, until eventually I would literally move into the Rosenbergs' home every Shabbos and Yom Tov. Once I'd become more observant, I also connected with Chabad of Puerto Rico, who would help me with kosher food and Shabbat whenever I would be home visiting my family. Rabbi Mendy and Rachi Sarchi took me into their home from day one. They were a source of support to me. The Zarchis in Puerto Rico, the Rosenbergs in Miami, made me part of their families and taught me how to live an authentic Jewish life. My priorities started to shift, and I knew that first and foremost, I wanted to build a strong Jewish home like I'd seen by them in their homes.
Thanks to Rabbi Greenberg and his family, I slowly started keeping kosher, Shabbos, and even putting on tefillin daily, all the while that I was in these Chinese movies. One summer, Rabbi Greenberg and his family disappeared in New York, and a visiting rabbi fills in. This rabbi gives a lunch and learn, and he gives this amazing class about all this mystical stuff that totally blew me away. And I was like, wow, who is this great sage? At the end of the class, I asked him, how old are you? And he tells me, 23 years old. I was like in shock. Here I am, 28 years old, and I thought I was so smart. I went to Dartmouth, I went to Harvard, but I couldn't come anywhere close to this genius 23-year-old rabbi. So I remember leaving the building, and I was a little crushed. I started to cry, and I said, what have I been doing with my life?
While I had been growing in my Jewish observance, I also had been applying to graduate school. I got accepted at NYU's MBA program on a full scholarship, but now I was hesitant to go. I was committed to Yiddishkeit. How would I manage without the support of my rabbi and rebbitzin? Could I sustain this lifestyle and the pressures of being in business school? And would I ever get married and build the Jewish home that I now envisioned? The Rosenbergs were adamant that I go to New York and get my MBA. They connected me with Mr. George Rohr, a businessman who, aside from establishing many Chabad houses around the world, ran a beginner service in the Upper East Side, right where I was going to live. I got my MBA, all while continuing to grow in my Yiddishkeit, but I still hadn't met Mr. Right.
By the next summer, I had figured out where the rabbi disappeared to. I joined him on a trip to New York to visit the Rebbe's Ohel. You know what I prayed for? To meet a nice Jewish girl. I was supposed to fly back to China on September the 12th, 2001. But that plane trip never happened. So I got stuck here in Crown Heights to spend the month of Tishrei. So that sukkah, I got invited to the sukkah of Rabbi Moshe Kotlarsky. And when I was introduced as Matt the Chinese actor, he took one look at me. And this is the man who sent the shluchim all around the world. He took one look at me and he said, Matt, when are you going to stop being the heartthrob of the Far East and go do something with your life? The only problem is Rabbi Kotlarsky repeated that line all night long. Matt, when are you going to stop being the heartthrob of the Far East and go do something with your life? He's not talking to me, right? He's saying my name, but he really means everybody else at the table, right? No, he's looking at me. He means me, literally. I admit I was a little bitter. A little. But I took his words to heart. And I realized that it was time for me to go do something more meaningful with my life. So I said goodbye to being a heartthrob, goodbye Chinese movie star, and instead, I took a job with an Israeli company in Shanghai, which gave me the opportunity to travel often to Israel to go to Mayanot Yeshiva. One day at Mayanot, the director, Rabbi Gestetner, pulls me aside and says, Matt, you seem like a nice guy. Ever think about getting married? I know a nice girl in New York. Maybe you should email her.
Once, at one of the many singles events I attended in the city, I heard a story about a man who needed to get a blessing to marry his daughter. His rabbi asked him, did you make a kiddush for her when she was born? He thought and said, no, I didn't. So the rabbi told him, think of all the blessings that would have been said and all the amens you would have responded. She missed out on that. Go back and make a kiddush in honor of your daughter. He did. And lo and behold, soon after, the girl got engaged. So I heard this and I said, I've got to do this. I called Chabad of the Upper East Side and I said, Rabbi, I want to sponsor a kiddush. What a lovely idea, Yael. Do you want to sponsor the regular kiddush or the grand kiddush? Rabbi, I want to get married. I'm going for the grand kiddush. We picked a date for the grand kiddush, and the rabbi exclaims, oh, Yael, this is actually a very auspicious date. It's the day the Mittler Rebbe got released from prison. I had no idea what he was talking about. Auspicious grand kiddush was all I needed. Around that time, I also went to Israel on a Birthright Mayanot trip, and I got involved with the Mayanot Birthright Wall Street alumni. And that's how I knew Rabbi Gestetner, who one day sent me a strange email, seemingly out of nowhere. Hi, Yael. Sorry to be so blunt, but are you looking for a husband? And if so, can you tell me what you're looking for? Not exactly your typical matchmaking intro, but yes, I was. So I replied with a description of
me. Mr. Right.
When I get the email from a guy who had graduated Harvard and became an actor and then religious in Shanghai, of all places, I thought, how do I know if this guy's normal? The best way to check him out was going to be through the Chabad shluchim in Shanghai. But how? So I called Mr. George Rohr. When I told him the situation, he said, "Don't worry, Yael, I'll look into it." After a few days, Mr. Rohr called me with a scoop on Matt. He said, "Yael, if you were my daughter, I'd tell you to go out with him."
Woo! Thank you, George Rohr, for the thumbs up. Yael and I had been emailing now for like a month and a half. And through our deep emails, I was like falling in love. I knew that she was the one. So I bought a ticket from China to New York to go meet her. But there's just one problem. We hadn't exchanged pictures yet. And I was afraid. What if, I don't know what she's gonna look like. Thank God we met in New York, and I was pleasantly surprised. We had 5 dates in 5 days. And on the 5th date, one day, I go into shul, and somebody says, "No tachanun." We don't have to say tachanun today. Why? It's a Hasidic holiday. It's the 10th of Kislev, the day that Mittler Rebbe gets out of jail. And so I say, wow, this is perfect. This must be an auspicious day for me to propose to Yael. So I run to a store here in Crown Heights, and I buy a suit. Well, it didn't really fit right.
Matt shows up at my doorstep, and I think, oh, how sweet, he brought me flowers. And then I think, wait, why is he wearing a suit and tie? And why is that suit so big on him?
Let's go to the Empire State Building.
Well, I just got off work. I'm a little hungry, actually.
But I insisted. I take Yael up to the top of the Empire State Building, and bam, Hollywood moment. There's a handsome guy who gets down on one knee. He proposes. She says yes, and everyone is cheering. And I'm like, Matt, you're a genius. This place is the perfect place to propose. So I find a quiet spot with the perfect view, and I pop the question. And Yael says, no. I look over the ledge and I think, what do I do now? Jump?
I didn't say no. I said not now.
At that point, I was in a daze. I don't really remember what happened. Oh yeah, we got back in the elevator and that beautiful couple gets in the elevator with us. They were so happy. It was the longest elevator ride down of my life.
I felt bad. I said, let's go eat. I know a place nearby.
Nearby? She walks over to Le Marais. You know, the fancy steakhouse? And I'm like, come on. She turns me down and I have to buy her steak? We go in and she orders the biggest steak on the menu and then an expensive bottle of wine?
Hey, you ordered the wine.
Things, thankfully, started to get more relaxed. We're talking and laughing, and I'm wondering, well, what now? So I tell her, you know, whenever you're ready, the offer's still open.
Oh, I did not like that. I said, what? You're going to have to ask me again.
And I'm thinking, I have to take her out on another expensive date? How much is that going to cost me? Then a flash of inspiration. Ask her again right now. And so I did.
And I said yes.
I learned my first lesson in marriage that day. Don't discuss anything important with your wife when she's hungry.
Now remember my grand kiddush? Matt and I got engaged a year later, exactly to the day.
A few months later, we get married on the steps of 770 Eastern Parkway. Rabbi Kartlarski married us. And the rabbis, George Rohr, and the rabbis from Shanghai, Miami, Puerto Rico, and Jerusalem all came and gave us blessings under the chuppah. 2 weeks later, we fly to Israel for a year of learning at Mayanot Yeshiva. And 12 months later, our first son, Moshe David, is born. His bris and pidyon ben were at Mayanot. After the new baby, I figured it's time to get a job. So I got some job offers in the States, and I was about to accept one when, out of nowhere, I get a call from Rabbi Gestetner. He says, Matt, there are some real estate guys in New York who you should go meet. They need someone to run their office in China.
Matt, there is no way I'm moving to China. Unless they make you some crazy offer.
Oh, yeah. So I go to the interview, and guess what? They made me a crazy offer.
The job was also sending us precisely to Shanghai, right next to his rabbi. Plus, the opportunity had come directly from Rabbi Gestetner, who introduced us. It was a clear sign that we were being led from above. And surely, this was not just about working in real estate. This was our chance to help the shluchim there build the community. And that's what we did.
2 weeks later, we take our 3-month-old baby to move to Shanghai. I went back to being Rabbi Greenberg's sidekick, but as his gabbai this time. And I also started a beginner's minyan modeled after Mr. George Rohr's. And I continued to do a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff at the Shanghai Jewish Center. My wife, Yael, helped the shluchim with the Hebrew school and with ladies' programs.
Aside from Matt's job in real estate development, we had a very vibrant life helping the shluchim. But again, we weren't helping them. They were helping us. Those 3.5 years in Shanghai in such close proximity to the Greenbergs strengthened our family and shaped how we would parent our children.
Our second baby, our daughter Batsheva, was born in Shanghai. I always joke that she was made in China. And when Yael was pregnant with our third, we decided, with the Greenbergs' blessings, that it was time to move to a place with more Jewish education for our children. My parents, Bubby and Zadie, were in Houston, where the shluchim, Rabbi and Mrs. Lazaroff, had built a wonderful community with a great school, and so we moved back to my hometown. One Shabbos, I'm walking home from shul with my oldest son, who's now about 10 years old, who suddenly turns to me and says, Tati, it's not fair. Why can't I have a Rebbe story? I want a Rebbe story. At first, I didn't know what to say, but then it hit me. Moshe David, my son, your whole life is a Rebbe story.
If not for the Rebbe, through the shluchim and lay leaders who inspired and empowered us, our entire family wouldn't be here. Our whole life is a Rebbe story.
Today, I'm not only the proud father of this beautiful family, I'm a businessman and a rabbi. How did I become a rabbi? That's a good story. When our oldest son turned 12, I asked him what he wants to learn for his bar mitzvah. And then he asked me, well, what are you going to learn for my bar mitzvah? Maybe go get smicha. I'll become a bar mitzvah and you become a rabbi. I thought he was joking at first, but he kept nudging me. So I finally signed up for online smicha with Rabbi Wilhelm. Totally recommend it. And after a few years studying, on top of my pretty intense work and travel schedule, I finished smicha. And that's when my son told me the truth. Tati, you know it was mommy who put me up to this. She's the one who wanted you to go get smicha. What? Almost 3 years and I had no clue that it had all been Yael's idea? Thank you, beautiful wife. Not only did you make me a husband and a father, but you also made me into a rabbi. Yael even encouraged me to keep learning, and a few more years, I became a dayan.
We're incredibly proud of him.
Despite all this, Rabbi Kartlarski's words continue to haunt me. Matt, when are you going to do something with your life? And then one day, I got a call from a rabbi in London. Matt, can you help us translate the Tanya into Chinese? Wow, of course. And then I discovered an amazing Rebbe story that blew me away. In the 1980s, nearly 40 years ago, the Rebbe requested that 2 books be translated into Chinese, the Divine Commandments and My Prayer. The first book was translated and brought to the Rebbe in 1989, but the second book, My Prayer, was never completed. The Rebbe asked for a book to be translated to Chinese 40 years ago and it hasn't been completed yet? I decided then and there, we have to finish my prayer immediately for the Rebbe. Thank God, we just published my prayer with Kahas. And the text of the book has been digitized and can be read for free online on Chabad.org. And we're almost finished with the Tanya. And God willing, it'll be on the shelves soon too. Do you have any idea how exciting this was for me? I could never really figure out, why did God make me go learn Chinese? Wouldn't my life have been better if I had spent that time learning Hebrew and more Torah instead? Finally, I found a chance to do something with my life, to use my unique talents and skills to do something for the Rebbe. Now I know why Hashem had me learn Chinese.
In addition to raising our family, I've leveraged my experience in business and finance to host an award-winning podcast called Jewish Money Matters. Over the last 10 years, I've helped the Shluchim in Houston by teaching classes and leading programs for the Jewish Latin American women in the city. I teach weekly Torah classes, both in Spanish and English, that are now available online and gather thousands of women across the globe. I've also had the opportunity to speak on many stages around the world, including JLI. I write for Chabad.org and other publications, and I'm about to publish my first book, a Jewish personal finance book on the power of tzedakah.
This is our family's Rebbe story.
You have a Rebbe story too. Just being here means you've been handpicked to be a light to your community and the world.
Now we're going to ask all of you, just like Rabbi Karlarski asked me on that fateful Sukkot night, when are you going to do something with your life?
Let's go and do something with our lives. Let's go out there and together bring Mashiach starting right now.
The Roar Jewish Learning Institute has the largest collection of Jewish media online. Hit subscribe for more.